Welcome everyone to this special conversation. I'm Navaneeth Suresh. I handle product marketing at Bluecopa. And with me today is Raghava, one of the co-founders of Bluecopa. Raghava, welcome and thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks, Navneet, for having me on the talks. Really excited for it.
Great then. So the intention is to tell the world about continuous close. I think it's still an evolving topic and a lot of people still don't know about it. But before we get to continuous close, I think it's important to talk about what has really changed in the world of finance, right? So I wanted to pick your brains on that. Raghavendra, tell me, there has been this shift where the finance function is now expected to become more real time in providing insights. So, how has this expectation of real time insight changed the role of finance?
Sure. So think about it. Say 5 to 10 years ago, CFO's primary responsibilities were all centered around compliance, accuracy, reporting, right? All of that used to be the case. But now the whole business approaches have changed, right? This is across industries, across geographies. What's happening is that decision cycles have come down drastically. Sales cycles today are measured on day-to-day basis. Supply chains are measured on an hourly basis, right? When things are moving at that pace, if finance also doesn't catch up with the whole continuous, movement or the cycles at which business run, is where the gap generally comes. So which is where there is a lot of push now from across the board for finance teams also to catch up with the faster frequency of financial activities, right? Which could also mean faster close, faster reporting, faster experiments to fail, and then increase eventually the overall value of the organization.
Right. It's interesting you talk about faster close, but have we reached a stage where the expectation is no longer just faster, but become real time?
It is. In fact, the fastest faster is going to be real time, right? I think today I've seen, in fact, a lot of companies rather than, backload activities towards month end have been doing a lot of heavy lifting on a weekly basis as well. And if you accelerate that, it becomes daily. And then if you accelerate that further, it becomes, maybe near real time or real time per se, which also means it's not just people thinking in moving real time, right? The whole finance operations, the right kind of tooling, everything is being explored across multiple organizations. So definitely real time is what continuous finance operations would mean, which also means, real time closure, real time reporting, real time receivables, payables, analytics, everything together.
Right. My next question is going to be something that you partially touched upon already, but still I would like to ask to get you to elaborate on it. So, why do you think finance is increasingly now expected to operate at the same speed of the business? Is it to enable faster decision making, faster investments, or to be able to adapt to changing market conditions? What is your take?
See, when the overall business moves very quickly, decisions have to be made really fast, which also means the experimentation pace is very high. The risks are going to increase, right? If risks are going to increase at a much faster pace, if finance doesn't catch up with that pace, then you would typically, end up in a situation where towards the month end, when the whole experimentation is done, when you have lost, your capital to some extent, you are actually acting, which is not business, which is not what creates value for an organization. So CFOs or finance teams or finance leaders from that standpoint are looking at accelerating finance function processes to be in line with business objectives. Again, at an overall level, if you look at it, it reduces the risk of the organization, which is what finance leaders generally do. It increases the valuation of the company, right? It ensures the cash flow is not taking a hit in the long run. So a bunch of KPIs that finance teams manage today, it's the same thing, just that the cycles have changed across the organization in different functions. So finance team also needs to catch up with that cycle to ensure there is not increase in risk, there is not decrease in valuation, for example.
Right. So, like you mentioned at the beginning, if we go back 5, 10 years ago, it was acceptable for finance teams to have book closure spill into the first week of the next month, maybe till 10th or even the 15th. But when I was reading about this, a thought came into my head that it's already too late. Even if it is one day later into the next month, it's already too late, and stale data is of almost of no value to a CFO. So, towards that, I think a crucial piece in the whole puzzle becomes book closure, right? So the status quo right now is event driven close, which is we wait for the end of a period. It could be end of a month, end of a quarter, etc. So let's talk about what exactly is broken there. Why is month end close usually seen as a very painful process for finance teams?
Sure. Okay, let me put it this way. It's not about the lack of tools in the CFO tech stack, which is leading to a lot of heavy lifting towards month end, right? It is just that the tools are disconnected. For example, you have ERP, which is the core system of record, which acts as your accounting tool. But there are a lot of systems from which data would flow. For example, you will have multiple CRMs, you have order management systems, you have warehouse management systems, right? You have banking transactions happening through bank channels. If you are into BFSI, right, you'll have LOS, you'll have LMS, so a bunch of tools in addition to ERP. The challenge is that these tools don't talk to each other, which is why there's a lot of heavy lifting that finance teams do in terms of collating data, reconciling data, right? But more from high transaction volume categories like say e-commerce, retail, logistics, BFSI, where your transaction volume runs into millions. Finance teams end up doing a lot of data collation and reconciliation activities day in and day out. This is because the systems are not connected, they don't talk to each other, right? Which also leads to a lot of gaps, errors, leakages, right? Audit issues. If that's not coming together as one single end-to-end process, is where you will end up having issues in terms of book close, in terms of your reporting, in terms of revenue leakages, audit issues, and things like that. A lot of heavy lifting today is happening in finance function towards the month end is also because of the behavioral pattern, right? It has been the norm so far for books to be closed towards a periodic end, which could be monthly, could be quarterly, whatever those cycles are. That is because earlier business cycles were also running at that pace that you had monthly targets. It's not that we don't have monthly targets now, but people track on a real time basis to see where things are on sales front, for example, supply chain front, for example. But what has been happening is that your tools are built, the current CFO tech stack tools are largely built from a batch processing model where, towards month end, you do all of that heavy lifting, which means the last 1 week, you pull all of the data from multiple tools, then you find out exceptions, anomalies, all of that. It is one, the tooling issue. Like I said, these are built for batch processing. Second is the approach that finance teams have taken so far, and that approach needs to change.
Right. So that was going to be my next question about what are the most common problems you see with the month-end close process across enterprises. So you touched upon the fact that there is a fragmented tech stack where systems don't talk to each other. Consolidating data in batches, especially towards the month-end, becomes very chaotic, especially in high volume businesses where transactions can run into millions. And when all of this has to be done manually, the workload is very heavy on sometimes a lean finance team, which enterprises have in-house, right? So we have been seeing this trend across the SaaS world in general, where a lot of the benefits promised by SaaS tools typically tend to be along this line that we will be this all in one system that encompasses all your other tools and be the single source of truth. But ERPs were supposed to do that for finance, for the finance function. So my next question to you is, why do these month-end close issues persist even after an ERP is implemented, something like SAP or NetSuite? Um, why do you think, despite having this monolithic, huge software, which is supposed to be the silver bullet solution, even after that, the month-end close issues persist?
This is, in fact, a great question, right? When ERPs came in, their promise was end-to-end, functions in an organization can all be managed from one single, platform or product, which is ERP. That is why you have HR modules in ERP, you have sales modules, you had supply chain modules, you have finance modules, everything. But over a period, the depth that is needed in each of these functions have changed drastically. ERPs could not catch up to that. That is why you see the whole CRM category getting carved out of ERP. You see marketing category getting carved out of ERP. You see supply chain getting carved out, HR modules getting carved out, right? It's largely finance centric now from an ERP standpoint. Also, ERPs have ERPs are designed to be designed from a transaction processing standpoint and not continuous validation and insight standpoint, which is why you see some of the gaps. If you look at from an ERP standpoint, they don't reconcile data from multiple tools at real time because there's not there's no data that flows from multiple tools into ERP any real time because These tools are very, very disconnected and they don't talk to each other, like I said, right? When you don't have, different tools talking or connecting with ERP at real time basis, you can never identify anomalies proactively. You can never figure out variances automatically, right? You can never trust the financials on a day to day basis. Only after somebody validates, right, puts checks and balances and authenticates, audits and says, right, the numbers are right as of today, is when you can trust those numbers, which is that cutoff period is currently the financial close cycles, right, which is monthly or quarterly, whatever it is. But if ERPs had all the different point solutions talk to ERP in real time and the data getting posted into ERP real time and the whole reconciliations, anomalies, processes running on ERP, then it would have been a very different ballgame altogether. But ERPs are designed for in a different approach, which is not actually helping in becoming in promoting or in helping in closing the whole books real time or near real time.
Got it. So I wonder, this is a segue to my next question. So ERPs came in with a big promise, but they clearly fail to deliver, especially with the changing needs of the finance world. I wonder if that is the reason finance teams have sort of accepted and normalized month end chaos as normal. What is your take on that? Is it because a lack of awareness of a better alternative, or is it because most finance tools are inherently broken in some way, or is it just the way it is meant to be?
Again, the current approach has been normalized over decades, right? If you look at most of the finance professionals, they have been trained to close books, for example, on month ends, right? Report on month ends. Your ARAP analysis typically happen towards month end. It's one, like I said, it's normalized. It's also taken for granted that there will be long working hours towards weekends or month ends, for example, right? There is going to be firefighting towards end of the reporting cycles, for example. There's a lot of, close related exceptions management, all of that towards end of the month or end of the quarter or end of the reporting period, whichever, cycle the companies follow. I think that is changing, Navneet. In fact, there are two aspects here. One is normalizing the current approach. The second is the tooling that is needed is also built from a batch processing standpoint. Both
Okay.
of them are changing now, right? Now tooling is also evolving to such a pace that you will start seeing a lot more tools becoming continuous finance operations enabled platforms you will see. At the same time, people have also realized the cycles have to be much, much shorter to match the cycles of other functions in the organization. So both these aspects are changing as we speak. That is where, that is where you see an opportunity. At the same time, you see a threat if you don't change.
Right. So now actually this brings us to like a time to pass a verdict. So in your view, knowing all that you do about the world of enterprise finance, do you think month end close, is it just currently badly executed, or is it just inherently broken?
I would say concept wise it's not broken. Everybody understands the need of month closure, right? It has significant advantage in terms of managing risk, giving transparency, increasing the overall value of the company and things like that. I would say it is badly managed again because of the lack of tooling. Just that technology also needs to evolve to a stage where you can process enormous amount of data near real time or real time, right? So I think while people understand the need for faster cycles in terms of finance operations or month closure, like I said, the concept is not broken. The tooling is broken. Now tooling is catching up. So finance functions are also catching up. In fact, it's very, very interesting to see a lot more companies, right? Large enterprises closing books on second or third of subsequent month, which used to be, 15th, 17th of subsequent months, right? There are also cases where companies would report their quarterly results, listed companies would report their quarterly rewards, in 45 days from the closure of the quarter, right? 30 to 45 days. That used to be the norm, probably a decade back. Now you see a lot more companies closing books in the initial 1, 2 days, and then there are also companies that are publishing the whole results to market in 10 days, right? Which is fascinating. You will start seeing that 10 days also come down to maybe 1 or 2 days. And hopefully, as quarter closes, your results also will get published one day very soon.
Got it. So the verdict is that the process is not, one close as a process is not broken. The process is still sound. It is just that finance teams need to be equipped with the right tools that can keep up with the changing needs of modern enterprise finance.